Greetings in the name of Yeshua. Shalom to all of our Jewish friends and followers. Today, a little more cheerier message. And it's, I guess we needed to recognize, and maybe some of us, not everybody, but some of us maybe needed a kick in the derriere to wake us up to recognize that maybe we were not thinking of those who were a little less fortunate than us. I consider myself one of the unfortunate, but then I'm living with the Lord, and my wife and I, we were talking today, Bunny Marie, we were talking today just how wonderful the Lord has been treating us. That we walk in faith, we live in faith, that we have bounty that keeps us sustained. We have warmth in our home. We have comfortable beds. But one of the things that we recognize that He has done with us, because of our age, we look around and we see people of similar age and having a problem. We're very thankful. Both of us are very cognitive of what's happening in our lives. We're very dear and thankful to the Lord for the ability to be able to do what we're doing at our ages. There's been a comment by one of my wife's caregivers who observes her. She said there are people who are half her age that couldn't produce as much as she does in a day when she's working. And she's right. My wife is very dedicated in what she does. And when she does take on a project, she's a tiger at it. Anyways, that's not the topic that I wanted to talk about. What I'm looking at, and this is something that I think a lot of people maybe overlook in their lives. The title of this, and it's been published, and I'll republish it tonight in Trumpeter's Call. You can get to it through rombourobert.com. That's ROMBOUGH, Robert.com. I'll repeat it. ROMBOUGH, Robert.com. Now, I want to do a little bit of campaigning here. Our ministry is on a mission to help widows in Kenya receive garden. It is a most satisfying feat to watch these individuals become free of poverty. How a garden or a goat or a small flock of chickens, 3 or 4, or a sheep, a milking sheep, can change a person's life overnight. It returns self-esteem, it returns worth, but more than anything, it uplifts and restores hope. And it brings a peace to the individual who is receiving one of those blessings, that their prayers have been heard and are being answered. And they're being answered because people have, from a distance, say 2,000 or 3,000 miles, have willingly contributed, have come before the Lord and admitted to themselves that they wanted to become an instrument of God to use. How they're used is monetarily. It's an unfortunate thing of this world, but it's what makes the wheels go round. And what we're looking for is, it's not a huge amount of money. 65 Canadian or 50 American will give a garden or a goat or a small little flock or a sheep to a widow. And it becomes a form of sustenance, but it opens a door for them to walk away from poverty and into a different life. Anyways, the topic, and I'm sorry, if you wanted to contribute, you can do so through, in Canada, e-transfer, and you send it to 780-497-0612. it'll go directly into the appropriate funds. That number again is 780-497-0612. You can use PayPal. It's at Robert Rombauch, Romboughh, and that'll go into the appropriate account as well. The third method is Western Union, and you can send it to Robert Rombauch, Romboughh. All three methods the funds will go in directly to an account, and then we forward that account. We marry it to one of the widows who's in our queue, and we forward it on to the appropriate pastor in Kenya, who is in charge, and his name is Evans Pastor Makwa. He's a bishop, and we have been working together now for just about a month. Actually, we've been familiar with each other on Facebook now for a little over a year. One of the things that I want you to know, in PayPal, if you're going to send funds through PayPal, American funds, go to the receiver portion, click on receiver, and the menu will come up. In that menu, switch it to US dollars. That way we do not pay any exchange. The reason why I'm saying that is because we use 100% of the money goes to Kenya for a garden, less transfer fees. So if we're not having to spend exchange rate, that's a little extra money that goes accordingly to the project in Kenya. We use 100%. We don't charge any administration fees. All of this work is done voluntarily, and it's done by men of God who are pastors or ministers. And we are vetting very strongly those who are coming in to what we call the network in Kenya. Okay? The individuals in Kenya who are volunteering have come up with a name. I don't want to mention the name until it is registered. They're telling me that they're registering it yesterday or today, and they will be sending me a certificate, which I will display. Understand what I'm trying to bring forward here is that this is a move. This is a sanction by God, by Yeshua, his son, the Father's son. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to bring information to people to understand that they're, through a watchman, who I am working obediently with the Lord, trumpeting the call that there is an error in the ecclesia, and it needs to be fixed. The problem is that people have been in this error for so long, it has become a part of their lives. And so the Lord, in order to demonstrate, because humans love to be demonstrated to, is demonstrating the truth of how, through kindness and caring and compassion, contributing and becoming an instrument of God to use in order to make his promises come true for these individuals by answering their prayer and providing them with a garden. And that opens the door for many things to happen in their lives. I explained some of them. The big thing is that they're free. They're free from the poverty. And what we see is a resurrection. We see a change. And what I was saying to my wife tonight is this is going to be a whole different ballgame. You're going to see people's lives changing, not only those who are helped, but those who have volunteered. Anyways, enough. You've got all of the information. I pray that your hearts are open and that you will donate. Okay? I hate the word donate. That you will contribute and become an instrument of God to fulfill his promise. The topic tonight is stubbornness is an inequity and an idolatry. The verse, 1 Samuel 15:23. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. I was told God forgives all sin, and you know, he does. However, not if the individual is returning to the very sinful nature just forgiven. You see, there is a little clause at the end of the forgiveness that goes like this: go and sin no more. What comes to mind is Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. I have a saying, and I wanted to intercede here and give it to you. You can talk to a fool, and you can tell him to his face that he is a fool. He won't acknowledge and he won't hear that you are telling him he is a fool, because he's too busy being a fool. And I've seen it so many times throughout my lifetime. Individuals not even realizing, or if they do, like it said here, stubbornness is an inequity. And they don't see the problem in their lives. And they move on and carry on. Now, what I recognize is the importance for us to come to truth, to recognize there is a truth out there that we need to walk in, that we need to be an example. And when we are brought information, we need to be receptive. The Holy Spirit will bring us words directly from the Lord and bring them into us that are teachings, and from those teachings we will gain more additional knowledge and understanding. Through that understanding and knowledge, we will gain more wisdom. What I just read to you, many of us suffer from it. Stubbornness. That's a big one. And some people will confuse determination with stubbornness. Being determined is not a sin. I see it as a strength. If I'm doing a project, I want to give it my best. I want to make sure that I'm handling it and dealing with it as a professional. Even though I may not be within that particular field, I am going to give as much effort as I possibly can in order for whoever is the recipient of what it is that I'm doing will look and understand that a lot of love and care and professional feelings and artisan or whatever have gone into that particular project. I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's harping at us again about this Kenya thing. I'm going to bring it up because, ladies and gentlemen, as a watchman, this mission has been given to me as a message to the ecclesia. My trumpet is sounding because the message is that there is an error in the ecclesia and it needs to be changed and it needs to be rectified. However, it needs to be first recognized. And the reason why he would pick a small country that is filled from one end to the other with corruption, even has permeated some of the supposed churches that are here, that are there. What I'm about to tell you is a warning. The Lord is saying that our hearts, the fleshly heart that He's given us, a portion of it has become stony again because we're ignoring the least of the family, the ones who really depend on us for their assistance to come. And at the end of an article that I just finished. Actually, it was another video, an earlier video. Where am I here? Okay, whoop, I gotta go 60 miles an hour here to get back to the very beginning of it. There's over 2,000 videos posted in the archives. Not videos, the articles and combination of articles and videos. There's over 2,000. I think it's around 2,200 right now. And this one here is on video on how to defeat evil. At the very ending of this article, the Lord gave me this. Oops, anyone here? I'm sorry, folks. The Lord gave me this. And he said, "Wherefore we must stir up ourselves. Have not we, when God has called, often neglected to answer?" Remember, this is a call out to those who would have a heart to help those in Kenya who are in trouble. Spiritually? No. Some of them are very, very faithful. What their malady is they lack food and they're looking for help. They're not looking for handouts. They're not looking for money. They're looking for food. So what we're doing is we're building gardens for them, and it's going to sustain them. Or what we do is find a goat, and they get the goat, or a sheep, and they're both milking, and you can count on that for sustenance in the home. Or a small little flock of chickens, 3 or 4, and then you have eggs on a regular basis. These are small little things that don't cost a lot. However, we take it for granted here in North America and other parts of the world, Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, the European countries. We all take it for granted. It's going to be there for us. When we want it, we reach into the fridge and there it is. What I'm trying to point out to you is that there's individuals who don't have a fridge to reach into, number one. And number two, if they did, they wouldn't have any food to put in it anyways. But getting back to the point that I was trying to allude to here, the Lord chose this country full of corruption to shine his light onto the lives of those who are needy. And the reason why that light is shone on them is for the ones who are affluent, who have sufficient, have become complacent, maybe, or thought, unthinking, maybe, or just simply uninformed. And I prefer to go with the latter, because what I want people to recognize is that there isn't any information going out in the world about the plight of these women. And it's not just here in Kenya. It's around the world, and in Central America, South America, in parts of Europe, in parts of the Middle East, especially in the Middle East, in those Muslim countries, Islamic countries, Muslim-controlled countries. That's it. Poverty is rampant. Understand what I'm trying to say is that we need to come to the recognition that we're neglecting these people. And I know there's individuals going to say to me, but there's agencies out there already doing what you're trying to do. We give thousands of dollars to them. We donate to them every year. And I'm saying, well, obviously they're not doing anything with your money, because I don't see any results here. I see a country filled with orphans and widows. It has been devastated by disease. and corruption. And when there's a black cloud over a country, the whole nation suffers, the people suffer. And the sad part of it is those who were capable of helping are now only capable of sustaining who they are. The problem with that is that that's kind of a spiritual disease that's gone around the world, where people are thinking only of self and they're not thinking of the community, their family, the community family and the spiritual family. That's what I want to talk about tonight, is the spiritual one. In essence of what it is that I am bringing forward, I'm trying to say that there's a lot of women who are widows and in distress. They want an opportunity before their husbands passed. Many of these women, from information I'm getting through the channels of the people who are working with them, many of them, they weren't affluent, but they were comfortable because of their husband. Once the source left, now that comfort left with it. What I'm attempting to do is to bring joy and peace and happiness and understanding, but self-esteem, worth, but the ability to reach out through hope and do something for themselves. Restore that. Entrepreneurial. I have one example, I've been quoting it, but there's several. All of a sudden, one of the pastors who's a part of the network, he's been vetted and he's a part of the network. His first name is Davis. I have a hard time with the last names here. It's going to take me a little while to get used to them. He had a group they heard about us. They heard about the work that's being done. They heard about how people are being helped and their lives are being changed. And they came to his office and they asked for assistance, not for a gardener, assistance to create a group, a small group. They named it Kenyan Network of Widow Enhancement. And I love the name because it's showing that they are hopeful. It's showing that they are going to take control of their lives. And that's what my aim was. But the aim of God is to use this little project to shine His light on it so that the world can see what the problem is. People like visual information. And this project is just that. We send out pictures of the successes and we send out ditties of how these individuals' lives have been changed, where they were and where they are now. But more than anything, we send out an appeal because there's more and more, as I said, the word is spreading. Within 4 days, the world, I know Kenya is a small country, but in 4 days, the word was throughout the whole country about what we were doing. It has an upside and it has its downside. Because I remember I said this country is steeped in corruption, from top to bottom and even in religious settings, unfortunately. So where do we go from here? When the Lord is sending out His message, what is it that He's asking His children to do? Again, in conversation with my wife, I was explaining to her that there is a form of a revival happening here, or going to. Because with every garden that is put in place, a door is being opened for the individual to come out of the darkness, and the light that is with them is shining into the world. In an earlier video, I made the mention that evil begets evil. But when there is good done, more good comes into the world. That good overshines all the evil. One of the things I recognize that, and I want to bring to your attention, is that God is working at it's a spiritual revival. And there will be a number of people who will come back to Him, and that is great. But what it also is that it's going to be a revival for people to come to an understanding how important they are to themselves. Not self, but to recognize that they need to look at them, they need to care for themselves, that their body is a temple, and that they have wisdom and understanding to create situations that will bring them further beyond poverty. And that they can live comfortably in faith and recognize and know that what they have is worth more than gold. Because now they're in the hands of the Lord, safe, and they're working to become more efficient in what it is that He has given them. And what I mean by that is the Lord calls on us to be wise with our money, wise with how we do different things, our time. Well, at the same time, He's also wanting us to be wise in how we worship, how we do different issues with our beliefs. And it becomes a situation where the Holy Spirit becomes a teacher to show us just what it is that the Lord wants. And when He draws us out of despair, He puts us into a position where He fills us with peace, He fills us with knowledge, He fills us with understanding, and He gives us wisdom. And that wisdom is how to use that knowledge and understanding for the betterment of their lives. That's the revival I'm talking about. That these individuals would be taken from despair and brought into a situation where their lives are going to change. And when their lives change, the knowledge and understanding that they have becomes a wisdom. And the discernment that comes along with the freedom that they gain then determines how wise they will become in using the wisdom that comes through the understanding and the knowledge. An example, the woman, very first, Violet, she is now selling firewood. I know I keep referring to that, but understand there's something great about that. Because 3 weeks ago she was in despair and didn't know what she was going to do and where her next meal was coming from. The garden stimulated her to become entrepreneurial. She's using her wisdom to deal with her form of life as wisely as she can. Meant to gather firewood, stockpile it at the end of her garden, and begin selling it as a revenue for her and her grandson. To have sustenance now while the garden is growing. And that's what I'm talking about. This is the revival. The group of women coming into the pastor's office and asking for advice on how to organize a group, that's a revival. It's a revival of individuals coming together and using their smarts, using their minds to find ways of bringing comfort and peace into their lives. It's taking them out of the trap of poverty and bringing them into a position where they are beginning to take control of their lives again. They have self-esteem. Some of these women are very intelligent. They're maybe not school intelligent, but they're certainly life intelligent. And that is more important, as far as I can tell, that's more important than schooling. Schooling is important for the younger generation to break free from the poverty and the poor. But those who have been entrapped in it and didn't have an opportunity to receive an education, life's education becomes very important to them. And I believe it would be for all of us if we learned something from each of them, and we probably would gain a huge amount of information about how to change our lives and live a little differently. That's what we're doing here with this mission. I don't preach to them, and nor do the pastors. The pastors bring them what is being paid for, a garden, and they help them dig the ground, get it prepared, and plant their garden. And then they turn it over to them and allow them to tend it. And they periodically come by and check and make sure that everything is okay. But the garden is theirs. That's the first step to returning self-worth to the individual. There are many different steps that are involved in this, that are many, many different gifts that the Lord is giving back to these women. Some of it has been laying dormant in them because they've not had the opportunity to stimulate it. Well, now they have the opportunity in this position to stimulate it, and they're using it. That's what I'm talking about. You're not just supporting a garden. What you're supporting is freedom. You're supporting a revival of life, a revival of intelligence, a revival of individuals becoming supportive of each other. Oh, second commandment. Do unto thy neighbor as you would have your neighbor do unto you. Understand the importance of that particular commandment. It's the foundation, I believe, it's the foundation to our Christian family. If we take the information from the second commandment and we utilize it throughout, say, a village or a community here in North America, and if we were all abiding in the Word of God and following that commandment, what kind of community and life do you believe you would be living in? It certainly wouldn't be the one that is out there at this particular point in time of fear and paranoia. It would be a whole lot peaceful. It would be a whole lot supportive. I grew up in the days when and I was in the country. And in the country I witnessed how communities, and when your neighbor was 8 or 9 or 10 miles away from you, or 6 or 7 or whatever, and you only had a one-line phone, and everybody had their own ring. But if you had a problem and you got on the phone and you cranked her and you mentioned to one individual that you were having a problem, the whole community come together and came over to help. You don't see that anymore. And that's what the Lord is trying to restore, is that camaraderie, that heart, the kindness of a heart, that we're there to support our neighbors. We're there to support each other as part of our spiritual family. When I was growing up, my mother, I never, at the time, I understand it now, and why she was doing it. My mother was a very spiritual woman, walked with the Lord, but she had it in her heart and believed this. She would make 1 or 2 sandwiches, wrap them up and sell it like the saran wrap, put them on the table, and there was a pot of coffee on the stove, and there would be a pitcher of milk and a pitcher of water on the table. The doors to our house were never locked, and if people were sojourning and they were hungry and thirsty, they knew they could come into our home and they would have a sandwich, and there would be a drink, and there would be sustenance there for them, and they were welcome to it. And there were many who traveled and knew our community and knew of my mother, and her kindness took advantage of it. Not in that they stole anything. What I meant was they partook. And there were times where that kindness was returned by a neighbor coming by with a case of pickled onions, or a case of pickled carrots, or 10 or 15 pounds of bacon. All different ways of saying thank you. Today, the only way I think, and that I can see that you might hear that happening, is if you're in an area that really doesn't have a whole lot of communication with the outside world. That's been lost. And I guess that's what this appeal is about, is to bring that kind of camaraderie back. And I guess the best place to start and bring it forward is in a country that is filled with corruption. Because in order to overcome it, that evil, and root it out and get rid of it, you first have to find a neighbor that you can trust. And then you work with them. The widows are the ones that the Lord has chosen for the neighbor to trust. And it grows from there. When the lives of the widows are changed, the lives of those who trust in them changes as well. And the mission is to bring that revival right across the country and sweep the corruption out and bring a lot more peace and happiness, and the country would prosper. Right now it's floundering because of the evil that is operating in it. Darkness does not let anything flourish. So the more darkness we can get rid of, and the quicker things will turn around in this country. And it will be an example for other countries and other pastors how to operate, how to make it happen. I just released an article, How to Defeat Evil. This is how you do it. Bring back the community spirit, the spirit that we're going to be keeping the second commandment. I threw a challenge out 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think it was. I can't remember the exact timeline. But I threw a challenge out for individuals to do a challenge to themselves and recognize how many of the 10 commandments they know. And then once they do that, is how many of those 10 commandments have they broken? And then how many of those 10 commandments are they keeping? And as a result, recognize how it's affecting your life. You see, when you walk in faith, the 10 commandments are your guide signs, posts, map. They're not the law. What they are is a map of how to live our lives and how to journey through this world by living that form of life. Faith, like I said earlier, Faith is not an easy master. It's one you have to conquer. And once you do, and you learn how to use it, you'll find that faith is one of the most powerful gifts that God can give. He told you it is as powerful because in having faith the size of a mustard seed, you're quite capable of moving a mountain. And I know a lot of people look at that and they go, oh yeah, right. I can move a mountain. And I say to them, here's a mountain for you. Do you have a problem that you're facing that you think is insurmountable? Well, yeah. I said, that's a mountain. And if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, and you take that insurmountable mountain and you place it in the hands of the Lord, and you do it without any doubt, and you pray and ask, if you're a true believer, He will remove that mountain for you. That's how faith works. I had a young man that we were working within the group, within the network in Kenya, and he was having a little struggle, and I said to him, you have to recognize that the Lord provides, but He doesn't provide the way we expect it to come. He provides according to how our need is and what it is that He chooses to provide, and also how He's going to provide it. And I said to him, I want you to recognize that faith is something that you have to exercise. You have to work with it. You have to become accustomed to it. You have to not only believe in it, but you have to trust it. You trust that the Lord is going to hear your prayer and have faith that He will answer and do what you have prayed for. And a young man challenged me and said to me, but how do we know that He will? And I said, that's trust that you have to have and believe. But I said, the one thing that you cannot have in your heart is doubt. If you doubt before you even pray, it isn't going to happen because the Lord He won't answer you. But if you remove all the doubt out of your heart and start believing zealously, believing that God will perform what He promised when you pray and ask for it. I want to give you, I've cited this example several times in different videos, that on my way to the mall, I hate the wind. I detest it. And I know that it's a necessary thing that we have to have in the world. But at the same time, it just, it vexes my spirit. So anyways, I'm on the way to the mall. And the wind is gusting, and it's preventing me from going forward. I'm not 100% stable on my feet anymore. I'm coming up to 76 years of age, and my legs and feet and my knees were battered when I was a youth playing hockey outdoors. I didn't have proper shin pads. So I took a lot of beating on my legs, the shins and my legs, and I'm paying the price for it today. But my point is that when the wind was blowing and I wasn't that stable on my feet, I was afraid that I was going to fall. And I looked up and I prayed, Lord, I need you to stop the wind. It's going to knock me over. Calm. Calm. Now, I know a lot of people will go, oh, come on. That's how powerful faith is. You can stop the wind. The Lord did it. He gave us an example. He calmed the seas and He stopped the wind by praying to the Father. Same as I just did. There are many different things that faith can do for you. It will open many, many doors. And one of the things that I recognize is that people today, if they would come to the Lord in faith, all the fear, all the confusion, all of the things that are standing against them, the possibility of them being maimed or dying, would all be lifted from them. They'd have a new life, and all of these maladies that are out there would never happen. And a young man said to me, "Where do I find that?" I said, Psalm 91, 1-8, and verses 9-16. And the 9-16 verses are where he actually literally provides us with 3 very powerful gifts. He takes us, if we're abiding with him, he takes us and places us in the hands of his angels to protect us. He then fills our lives with protection from any disease or plague. Not just us, but our homes as well. He then gives us power to overcome the enemy. That is, knowledge and understanding of how to deal with Satan's curses or his temptations to draw us away from the Lord. And the third one, I love this one, and this is one that I claim and hold on to. He promises long life. Now that one, to me, is the key that locks the other 2 in place in our lives. For me, when I look at that, what it says to me is that if he's promised me long life, everything that he talked about, the no disease, no plagues, my home is protected, I'm protected, I have knowledge and understanding and wisdom to offset the curses and all of the maladies that Satan might bring against me. The long life, is his stamp of approval and guarantee. So you can't have a long life if you have a disease or you have a malady. Think about that. Many people miss it. I stand on it and I love it. In our home, we are 100% faith-driven here. And I say to you in all sincerity and as a witness, the calm that has been in my life over the last, about a year and a half ago, when I started living with faith, in faith and on faith, and by faith, the calm that has come into our home, I can't describe it. And people say, well, it's got to be difficult. And I go, no. Every day it becomes easier and easier. Every day it becomes more plain of how to maintain it and work with it, exercise it and make it stronger. It's like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. The stronger it gets, the more it lifts you up. The stronger your relationship with Yeshua becomes. And deep faith allows you to receive deeper lessons, deeper understanding, discernment, gives you a better feel for the wisdom that you have and how to use it. You can resolve many, many issues that really shouldn't be in your life. They're there because the enemy puts them there. Recognize we, as the individuals, have that kind of power if we abide in the Lord. Thank you for listening. And I appeal for the widows. I'm not asking for much. One garden in Canadian dollars is 65. In American funds is 50. And I had a gentleman ask me, well, how do I get it to you? How do I get it to you? 3 ways. One, if you're in Canada, you can e-transfer to 780-497-0612, and it'll go into the appropriate account. The other method is by PayPal. And the address is at Robert Rombauch, R-O-M-B-O-U-G-H. I'll say it again, at Robert Rombauch, R-O-M-B-O-U-G-H. Excuse my voice. The final and third one, which we've just added, is Western Union, and you can send it to Robert Rombauch, R-O-M-B-O-U-G-H. All of these 3 methods, we keep nothing from that money. 100% of it, less the transfer fees, goes to Kenya and is applied to the garden. And there is a gentleman, a bishop, that we are in league with, who is in charge of the Kenya operation. He is the hub. We give him direction, and that's where the money goes. And we have a network of pastors in Kenya who have been vetted. We know that they're honest, and we know that the money is going to go to the individuals and change their lives. The procedure is for me to transfer to the bishop. The bishop then, and I delegate where the money goes, because those who are contributing have the option to determine who it's going to go to. In our emailings and our output, we are showing pictures of individuals and with their names and what their need is. And you can choose who you want to support. From there, you will receive, once everything is in place. Now, there's kind of a situation that because we merged, we have added different items to bring forward and available to the widows, because not every widow wants to garden. So what we do is we make a goat or a small flock of chickens, 3-4 chickens, maybe 5, available to them, or a sheep, and we then present that for them for sustenance. The goat and the sheep are milking. You can get milk from them. I just learned that there is a certain breed. There's only one breed of sheep that you can milk, but they are available. And I mentioned it to the pastor there, and he said yes, he had seen it in one of the villages that he ministers to. So we're investigating that. But my point I'm trying to make to you is that your money, 100% of it goes to purchasing either a garden, the seeds and the tools to make the garden happen, or a goat, or a sheep, or a little flock of chickens. And what that does is that it opens the door for these individuals. As I had explained, I don't want to go through it again. And I'm saying to you, if you've been touched by this video and recognize that there are things that you can do, you can become an instrument for God to fulfill His promises to these women and answer their prayers. I thank you for listening. I pray, God, that you give them knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and discernment of how to use the wisdom, and how to use the wisdom that has been bestowed upon them. This I pray in Yeshua's name. Amen and amen.